The Cardassian warship's cannon spat blistering plasma at the human colony ship. How dare these primates defy the galaxy's mightiest empire? But to Commander Sagan's shock, the humans fought back with stunning fury and defiance. Captain Gabriel Jones stood resolute on his bridge, even as the deck shuddered under Cardassian bombardment. Outside, the sleek hunter-killer circled their colony vessel like a shark toying with prey. Sagan had expected them to transmit groveling pleas for mercy upon sighting his dreaded ship. Instead, the human broadcast a stark refusal to submit, warning the Cardassians not to underestimate humanity's tenacity. The affronted commander, his scales flushing crimson with rage, had ordered the attack to make an example of these upstarts. But incredibly, the human ship's shields held against the onslaught. Their own guns scored devastating hits in return, crippling the Cardassians' engines with skillful precision. As the warship limped away trailing smoke, stunned realization dawned on Sagan. He had badly misjudged these primitive-looking beings. Humanity posed a far greater threat than anticipated. Frantic, he signaled for Cardassian reinforcements, while vowing dark vengeance against the humans. On the human ship, Captain Jones grimly watched the hostile vessel retreat. He knew their defiant stand had placed an enormous target on humanity's back. One lowly colony transport, through guts and grit, had just bloodied the nose of the notoriously ruthless Cardassian Empire. They would surely return in force to crush this brazen challenge to their supremacy. By refusing to bend knee, Jones had set humanity on a perilous path, but also one that could finally win them respect in this cutthroat galaxy. As the humans descended to build their settlement on the verdant world below, equal parts elation and dread gripped the colonists. Superior innovation and sheer mettle had carried the day. But it was only the opening salvo in the struggle to come. The road ahead promised hardship and sacrifice, the stakes nothing less than their species' future among the stars. Yet Captain Jones and his people stood determined to prevail through valor and iron will, forging humanity's place through audacity and unbending courage. They would carve out a home in this hostile universe that sought to break them, or die trying. This first ringing blow would echo across the void of space, sending tremors of unease through the established galactic pecking order. The human upstarts had burst onto the scene in dramatic fashion, brazenly declaring that there was a bold new contender stepping into the arena, unbowed and unbroken. Now they dared the galaxy to do its worst. As the human colonists labored tirelessly to build their settlement, erecting prefab shelters and planting the first crops, an insidious campaign of Cardassian sabotage threatened their progress at every turn. Isaac Weston, the colony's chief engineer, found himself locked in a never-ending struggle to keep vital systems online. He pored over malfunctioning power generators, tracing the cause of yet another suspicious surge that had fried delicate circuitry. His calloused hands deftly repaired damaged components, coaxing the machines back to life. But no sooner had he triumphed over one act of vandalism than another crisis demanded his attention. Reports flooded in from across the settlement. Water purifiers sputtered and failed, spewing contaminated liquid. Essential supplies vanished from storehouses, leaving the colonists scrambling. Each incident bore the fingerprints of Cardassian interference, a campaign orchestrated by Governor Sagan to demoralize and undermine the humans. Isaac gritted his teeth as he worked, fury bubbling beneath his stoic exterior. The Cardassians fought like cowards, striking from the shadows instead of facing the colonists openly. But he would not let their underhanded tactics prevail. With unwavering drive, he fortified critical infrastructure, adding redundancies and fail-safes to blunt the impact of future attacks. As Isaac battled on the front lines of this Cold War, Captain Gabriel Jones faced a dilemma of galactic proportions. Word reached the colony of a devastating virus ravaging the Cardassian Empire, an insidious pathogen that defied all attempts at treatment. The scale of the outbreak staggered the imagination, with millions infected and the death toll climbing exponentially. Gabriel saw in this crisis a chance to reshape the narrative. By offering human aid to find a cure, he hoped to demonstrate the best of humanity's values: compassion, generosity, and the drive to help those in need, even sworn enemies. If successful, it could be the first step in thawing relations and earning begrudging respect from the Cardassians. He reached out to Governor Sagan, extending an olive branch laden with the promise of human scientific expertise. But Sagan slapped the offer away with a burst of indignant rage, his image sneering from the view screen. "The great Cardassian state would never grovel before primitive upstarts like you," Sagan spat, his scales flushed with wounded pride. "We will overcome this trial through our own indomitable resilience. And when we do, we shall redouble our efforts to scour your kind from the galaxy." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving Gabriel staring at a blank screen. Sagan's words echoed in his mind, dripping with venom and disdain. The Cardassians would rather brave the plague than accept aid from those they saw as inferior. Their stubborn pride would be their undoing. But Gabriel refused to stoop to their level. He summoned Dr. Catherine Shaw, the colony's chief medical officer, and charged her with a daunting mission: to study the virus and search for a cure, even without Cardassian cooperation. If they could find a solution, he reasoned, perhaps they could change Cardassian minds through action rather than words. As Catherine disappeared into her laboratory, determined to unravel the virus's secrets, Isaac burst into Gabriel's office with alarming news. His probes had detected increased activity on the far side of the planet, concentrated around a remote Cardassian outpost. The telltale signs of military buildup were unmistakable. The Cardassians were preparing for war. "They're constructing a staging ground for an invasion," Isaac said grimly, pointing to the damning sensor readings. "If we don't act soon, they'll have a foothold to launch an all-out assault on the colony. We need to strike first, neutralize the threat before it's too late." Gabriel leaned back in his chair, conflicting impulses warring within him. The strategist in him recognized the wisdom of a preemptive strike, to nullify the Cardassian danger and safeguard the colony's survival. But the idealist recoiled at the thought of abandoning his peaceful principles, of tainting humanity's image with an unprovoked attack. As if sensing his inner turmoil, Sagan's face reappeared on the screen. The Cardassian's eyes glinted with cool calculation as he made his proposal. "I am prepared to ease our efforts against your colony," Sagan said smoothly. "Provided, of course, that you share any progress your doctors make on a cure. You have 12 hours to decide." The screen went dark once more, leaving Gabriel alone with the weight of an impossible choice. The fate of the colony and humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance. Would he stay true to his values and risk annihilation, or would he make the hard decision to strike first and sully humanity's virtue in the process? He had half a day to determine the course of history. Gabriel closed his eyes, the burden of leadership crushing his shoulders. No matter his decision, the repercussions would echo across the stars, shaping the future of human-Cardassian relations for generations to come. In that moment, Gabriel felt the full gravity of his duty pressing down upon him, a weight he would carry no matter the outcome. As Gabriel pondered the colony's next move, Dr. Catherine Shaw burst into his office, her eyes alight with excitement. "Captain, we've had a breakthrough," she said, barely containing her enthusiasm. "That native Earth plant in our hydroponics bay, it's showing remarkable antiviral properties against the Cardassian pathogen." Gabriel leaned forward, his brow furrowing. "How certain are you?" "Preliminary tests are incredibly promising," Catherine replied, sliding a datapad across his desk. "This could be the key to saving millions of Cardassian lives." The implications hit Gabriel like a meteor strike. Here was a chance to extend an olive branch, to prove humanity's worth beyond mere military prowess. Yet the strategist in him recoiled at the thought of giving their adversaries such an advantage. "If we share this cure, we lose our edge," he mused aloud. "The Cardassians would see it as weakness, an opportunity to press their attack." Catherine's face fell. "But sir, it's our moral duty to help, regardless of the consequences. We can't let millions die when we have the means to save them." Before Gabriel could respond, Isaac Weston stormed in, his face etched with concern. "Captain, we've got trouble," he said grimly. "I've detected unusual activity near the colony. A group of Cardassian merchants entered under the guise of trade negotiations, but their behavior is suspicious. I think they're gathering intel on our defenses." Gabriel's mind raced, connecting the dots. Could they know about the cure? Isaac shrugged. "It's possible, but there's more. Long-range scans show increased activity at a nearby Cardassian outpost. It bears all the hallmarks of a military buildup. The pieces fell into place, presenting Gabriel with a nightmarish scenario. If the Cardassians learned of the cure, they might launch an all-out assault to seize it. Yet preemptive action could shatter any hope of peaceful coexistence. "We need to fortify our defenses," Isaac urged. "Hit them before they can strike." Catherine shook her head vehemently. "No, we must reach out. Show them we're willing to help, even in the face of hostility." Gabriel closed his eyes, the weight of command crushing down upon him. Every potential path seemed fraught with danger, each choice carrying the potential for catastrophe. "Prepare a diplomatic envoy," he said at last, his voice heavy. "We'll attempt to open a dialogue with the Cardassian leadership. In the meantime, discreetly bolster our security measures. And Catherine, continue your work on the cure. We may need it sooner than we think." As his subordinates rushed to carry out his orders, Gabriel turned to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Cardassian forces gathered, their intentions unknown, and in the shadowy corners of the colony, infiltrators moved unseen, laying the groundwork for conflict. The next move would determine the fate of two civilizations. Gabriel could only hope he had chosen wisely. The air raid sirens pierced the night, jarring Gabriel from his restless contemplation. He sprang to his feet, heart pounding as the colony's emergency comm system crackled to life. "Multiple hostiles breaching the outer perimeter." Isaac's voice rang out, tense but controlled. "All security personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill." Gabriel raced to the command center, the corridors a blur of panicked colonists and grim-faced soldiers. He burst through the doors to find Isaac hunched over a holographic display, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Cardassian rebel forces," Isaac reported without looking up. "They hit us hard and fast. Our outer defenses are already compromised." Gabriel's mind focused as he surveyed the tactical readouts. Red icons swarmed across the colony's perimeter, pushing inexorably inward. How did they get past our early warning systems? "They didn't," Isaac growled. "Someone disabled them from the inside. We've got infiltrators." A priority transmission cut through the chaos, and Gabriel's blood ran cold as Dukat's face materialized on the main view screen. The Cardassian's eyes glittered with malice. "Captain Jones," Dukat purred, his voice dripping with false cordiality. "I'll make this simple. Surrender your colony and Dr. Shaw's viral cure research immediately, or I will reduce your pitiful settlement to ash." Gabriel's mind raced, weighing the colonists' lives against the devastating consequences of letting the cure fall into Dukat's hands. He opened his mouth to reply, but Dr. Shaw's voice rang out behind him. "Don't you dare give him what he wants, Gabriel," she said, striding into the command center. Her lab coat was singed, her hair disheveled, but her eyes burned with fierce persistence. "If Dukat gets that cure, he'll use it as a weapon. Millions more will die." Gabriel nodded, his willpower hardening. He turned back to the screen, meeting Dukat's gaze. "We will not surrender, and we will not hand over the cure. You'll have to pry it from our cold, dead hands." Dukat's face contorted with rage. "So be it," he snarled, cutting the transmission. The command center erupted into frantic activity. Gabriel barked orders, coordinating the colony's defenses, while Isaac's fingers flew across the controls, rerouting power and activating emergency protocols. Outside, the night air filled with the staccato of weapons fire and the screams of the wounded. Human security forces engaged the Cardassian shock troops in vicious close-quarters combat. The prefab structures of the colony became a maze of ambushes and firefights. Gabriel watched the tactical display with growing amazement. Despite being outgunned and outnumbered, the human defenders were holding their own. Years of conflict on Earth had honed their urban warfare skills to a razor's edge. They used the colony's layout to their advantage, funneling the Cardassians into brutal choke points and deadly crossfires. A thunderous explosion rocked the command center. Gabriel steadied himself against a console as Isaac's eyes widened in alarm. "They're targeting the research lab," Isaac shouted. "If those containment fields go down—" "I'm on it," Dr. Shaw interrupted, already sprinting for the door. "I'll get the samples out." Gabriel opened his mouth to protest, but she was already gone. He turned back to the tactical display, watching in horror as a massive energy signature appeared in orbit. "Ducat's bringing in the big guns," Isaac muttered. "Looks like a strike cruiser. Our shields won't hold against that kind of firepower." Gabriel's mind raced, searching for options. What if we overloaded the shield grid, concentrate all our power into a single pulse? Isaac's eyes lit up. It's crazy, but it just might work. His fingers danced across the controls. Rerouting power from life support now. Shields at 300% capacity and climbing. The air grew thick and stale as the life support systems powered down. Sweat beaded on Gabriel's forehead as he watched the energy readings climb higher and higher. "Cardassian cruiser powering weapons," Isaac called out. "Torpedoes away." Gabriel gripped the edge of the console, his squeezing hard. "Now, Isaac!" The shield grid flared to life with blinding intensity. The incoming torpedoes slammed into the barrier, their energy dissipating in a spectacular light show. Arcs of electricity crackled across the colony's surface as the overloaded shields sent a massive feedback pulse into the Cardassian ship. On the tactical display, the cruiser's weapons systems winked out one by one. A cheer went up from the command staff, but Gabriel knew the fight was nowhere near the end. "Status on Dr. Shaw?" he demanded. Isaac's fingers flew across the controls. "She's made it out of the settlement, heading into the wilderness with the cure samples." Gabriel nodded grimly. "Keep her location secure. We can't let Ducat—" An alarm blared, cutting him off. Isaac's face paled as he studied the readouts. Multiple breaches in the inner perimeter. They're making a push for the center of the colony. Gabriel's teeth gritted. "Then we'll give them a fight they'll never forget." He grabbed a pulse rifle from a nearby weapons locker and turned to address the command staff. "This is our moment. We stand here not just for ourselves, but for the future of humanity among the stars. Let's show these Cardassian bastards what we're made of." With that, Gabriel strode out of the command center, his staff falling in behind him. The sounds of battle grew louder as they made their way through the corridors. Ahead, the distinctive whine of Cardassian disruptors echoed off the walls. Gabriel took a deep breath, tightening his grip on the rifle. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. The Cardassians were about to learn just how dangerous it was to back humans into a corner. Gabriel's pulse rifle blazed as he led the charge against the Cardassian invaders. The colony's corridors became a hellscape of smoke and plasma fire. Human defenders fought with desperate ferocity, using their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the numerically superior enemy. "Fall back to Choke Point Charlie," Gabriel shouted over the din of battle. His troops retreated in good order, luring the Cardassians into a prepared kill zone. As the invaders rounded the corner, Isaac triggered the makeshift defenses. Overloaded power conduits exploded in a shower of sparks, dropping Cardassian soldiers in their tracks. The humans pressed their advantage, pushing the stunned enemy back. Hours of grueling combat blurred together. Gabriel lost track of time, focused only on the next target, the next tactical decision. His uniform was scorched and blood-spattered, but he fought on. Finally, the Cardassian assault faltered. Their numbers dwindled, and the survivors began to withdraw. Gabriel allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before turning to Isaac. "Status report," he demanded, voice hoarse from shouting orders. Isaac's fingers danced across his battered datapad. "We've held the line, sir. Cardassian forces are in full retreat, but our losses are significant." Gabriel nodded, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. "And Dr. Shaw?" "Still secure. She's made it to the rendezvous point with the cure samples." Before Gabriel could respond, a priority transmission cut through the static of their comms. It was a message from the Cardassian homeworld, its sender's identity classified at the highest level. The exhausted defenders gathered around as Gabriel played the message. A grim-faced Cardassian official appeared on screen, his voice tight with terrifying desperation. "Captain Jones," the official began, "news of your colony's stand against Ducat's forces has spread across our worlds. While we regret the circumstances, your actions in safeguarding the viral cure have not gone unnoticed." Gabriel exchanged glances with Isaac as the Cardassian continued. "Our situation has become untenable. Millions of our people die each day, and we can no longer afford the luxury of pride. We request immediate access to Dr. Shaw's research data." A spark of hope ignited in Gabriel's chest, but he kept his expression neutral. This was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to secure humanity's place among the stars. "We are prepared to negotiate," Gabriel replied carefully. "But I have conditions." The Cardassian's eyes narrowed, but he nodded for Gabriel to continue. "First, our settlement is granted official sovereign status. Second, humanity receives a permanent seat on the Galactic Ruling Council as an equal power." Silence stretched for long seconds as the Cardassian processed Gabriel's demands. Finally, he spoke. "Your terms are steep, Captain, but given the circumstances, we have little choice. Central Command accepts your conditions." Gabriel allowed himself a small smile of triumph. "Then let's not waste any time. I'll have Dr. Shaw and her team prepared for immediate evacuation to your research facilities." As the transmission ended, cheers erupted from the gathered humans. Gabriel raised a hand for silence. "This isn't over," he warned. "We've won a victory, but challenges lie ahead. Isaac, coordinate with Dr. Shaw. I want her team ready to move within the hour." The command center bustled with activity as Gabriel's orders were carried out. He stared out at the ruined colony, knowing that from these ashes, humanity would rise to claim its place among the stars. Little did he know that even now, Governor Sagan and his band of Cardassian supremacists were plotting their next move. The stage was set for a new conflict that would test the limits of human ingenuity and purpose. The negotiations with the Cardassian Central Command proved fruitful. Within days, Dr. Shaw and her team were en route to the Cardassian homeworld, their shuttle escorted by a mixed fleet of human and Cardassian vessels. Gabriel watched from the colony's command center as the ships vanished into warp, carrying humanity's best hope for lasting peace. Months passed in a flurry of activity. Reports from Dr. Shaw detailed the rapid distribution of the antiviral cure across Cardassian space. Death rates plummeted, and a wave of cautious optimism swept through both human and Cardassian populations. Gabriel found himself thrust into a new role as commissioner, overseeing joint human-Cardassian medical aid efforts. He spent his days mediating disputes, coordinating supply chains, and navigating the treacherous waters of interspecies diplomacy. One evening, as Gabriel pored over resource allocation reports, a priority transmission from Dr. Shaw lit up his console. Her face appeared on the screen, drawn and exhausted. "Gabriel, we have a problem," she said without preamble. "The Cardassians are pushing us to produce the antiviral at an impossible rate. My team is working around the clock, but we can't keep up with demand." Gabriel frowned. "Are they providing the resources you need?" "Resources aren't the issue," Shaw replied, glancing over her shoulder. "We're not exactly free to leave the research facility. I think they're afraid we'll take the cure and run." Before Gabriel could respond, alarms blared through the command center. Isaac burst through the door, his face pale. "Multiple explosions reported at the Cardassian research facility," he shouted. The transmission with Dr. Shaw dissolved into static. Gabriel's heart raced as he barked orders, mobilizing a joint strike force. Hours later, Gabriel stood on the bridge of a human cruiser, leading a desperate pursuit of a Cardassian rebel transport. The ship's sensors had detected traces of Dr. Shaw's DNA, confirming their worst fears. She had been kidnapped in the chaos of the attack. "Target locked," the weapons officer reported. "Disabling shots ready." Gabriel nodded grimly. "Fire!" The cruiser's phasers lanced out, striking the rebel ship's engines with surgical precision. As the crippled vessel drifted, Gabriel led the boarding party himself. They fought their way through smoky corridors, dispatching pockets of resistance. But when they reached the holding cell, they found it empty, save for a few drops of blood. "Escape pod launched during the firefight," Isaac reported over the comm. "We're analyzing the trajectory now." Gabriel clenched his fists, frustration and worry warring within him. They had been so close. Days later, Gabriel stood on the bridge once more, this time approaching a desolate, ringed moon. Isaac's forensic team had traced the pod's projected course here, to this barren rock at the edge of Cardassian space. As they entered orbit, sensors detected a faint energy signature on the surface. Gabriel led a heavily armed away team to investigate. They materialized in a stark, rocky landscape. In the distance, a crude biosphere dome rose from the lunar dust. As they approached, weapons at the ready, a figure in a makeshift environment suit burst from the structure's airlock. Gabriel's heart leapt as he recognized Dr. Shaw's desperate sprint toward them. Behind her, Cardassian troops poured from the dome, disruptors blazing. "Get to the ship!" Gabriel shouted, laying down covering fire. Shaw stumbled, her decrepit suit failing as she neared the landing zone. Gabriel raced to meet her, scooping her into his arms as the transporter beam enveloped them. They rematerialized on the ship's bridge, Shaw gasping for air as her suit gave out completely. Gabriel barked orders for immediate medical attention as the ship broke orbit, narrowly evading a barrage of fire from the surface. As they sped away from the moon, Gabriel knelt beside Shaw's prone form. Her eyes fluttered open, filled with pain and willpower. "The virus," she whispered hoarsely. "They wanted to weaponize it. Couldn't let them." Gabriel squeezed her hand as the medical team rushed in. "You're safe now," he assured her. "We'll finish this together." As Shaw was whisked away to sickbay, Gabriel turned his attention to the view screen. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the ship entered warp, carrying them toward an uncertain future. Behind them, Dukat's forces regrouped, the echoes of their defeat sure to fuel an even greater purpose for vengeance. The ship's corridors buzzed with activity as Gabriel strode toward the medical bay. Dr. Shaw's ragged breathing echoed in his mind, a stark reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. He passed groups of human and Cardassian personnel working side by side, their faces etched with willpower and fatigue. Gabriel entered the medical bay to find Dr. Shaw sitting up, her color improved, but her eyes still haunted. She gripped a data pad, fingers flying across its surface. "Catherine," Gabriel said softly, "you should be resting." She looked up, a fire burning behind her exhaustion. "No time. The virus. Dukat's people were trying to modify it. We have to stay ahead of them." Gabriel pulled up a chair. "Tell me everything." As Shaw detailed her captivity and the rebel Cardassians' plans, Gabriel's fists clenched. The stakes had risen beyond even his worst fears. "We need to get this information to our allies," he said, already tapping his communicator. "Isaac, set up a secure channel to the Cardassian Central Command." The next hours blurred into a whirlwind of strategy sessions and logistical planning. Gabriel coordinated with allied Cardassian forces, establishing a network of clandestine supply routes to ensure the antiviral cure reached those who needed it most. Reports flooded in of hit-and-run attacks on medical transports. Gabriel pored over tactical displays, searching for patterns in the chaos. He spotted a telltale signature in the rebel ship's warp trails. "There," he said, pointing to a seemingly empty sector. "That's where Sagan's staging his attacks from. We'll set up a trap." Days later, Gabriel stood on the bridge of his ship, tension coiled in his muscles as they lay in wait. A rebel cruiser dropped out of warp, weapons primed to strike a passing medical freighter. "Now!" Gabriel barked. Their ships decloaked, catching the rebels in a devastating crossfire. The skirmish was over in minutes, Sagan's forces scattering back into the void. But even as they celebrated this victory, new challenges arose. Reports came in of unrest on outlying Cardassian colonies, fueled by anti-human propaganda. Gabriel knew they needed a bold move to regain momentum. He gathered his top advisors, laying out a daring plan. "We're going to extract key Cardassian scientists opposed to Dukat and Sagan. Their knowledge could be crucial." The extraction mission was a knife's edge of tension. Human commandos slipped through war-torn streets, dodging patrols and snipers. They located the dissident scientists huddled in a makeshift safe house. "Come with us if you want to live," the team leader said, extending a hand. As they raced back to the extraction point, Cardassian security forces closed in. Plasma bolts sizzled past their heads as the humans provided covering fire. The scientists stumbled onto the waiting shuttle mere seconds before it rocketed into orbit. Gabriel allowed himself a brief smile as the mission's success was confirmed. But his relief was short-lived. An aide burst onto the bridge, face pale. Sir, we've intercepted chatter. Ducat's cell is planning something big. They're calling it Project Metagenic. Gabriel's blood ran cold. He knew the implications of such weapons all too well. The race was on to stop Ducat before he could unleash a catastrophe that would make the initial plague look tame by comparison. As Gabriel mobilized every asset at his disposal, he couldn't shake the feeling that the true test of humanity's willpower was only just beginning. Gabriel's eyes snapped open as the intercom crackled to life. "Commissioner, urgent transmission from our Bajoran contacts." He swung his legs off the bed, ignoring the protest of sore muscles. Sleep would have to wait. Again. In the command center, a grainy holographic feed flickered to life. A hooded figure spoke in hushed tones. "We've confirmed it. Ducat's joined forces with Bajoran extremists. They have metagenic weapons." Gabriel's teeth clenched. "How many? Where?" "Unknown, but their leader, Kai Wynn, has seized control of the central monastery. Hundreds of civilians inside." Alarms blared as Gabriel barked orders. Within minutes, he stood before a joint strike team of human and Cardassian operatives. "This is a precision extraction," he said, voice steady. "We go in fast, we go in quiet. Neutralize hostiles, secure the weapons, protect civilians. Questions?" Silence, grim nods. The temple grounds materialized around them as the transporter beam faded. Gabriel's team moved like ghosts through shadowed corridors. The acrid tang of weapons fire filled the air. A Bajoran zealot rounded the corner, eyes wild. Gabriel's stun blast dropped him before he could raise his disruptor. "Wynn's in the inner sanctum," Dr. Shaw's voice crackled over the comm. "I've identified a weak point in their shields. Sending coordinates now." Gabriel studied the data, a plan forming. "Teams 2 and 3, create a diversion at the north and east entrances. Team 1, with me." Explosions rocked the temple as Gabriel's squad breached the sanctum. Phaser fire erupted from all sides. "For Bajor!" a fierce voice cried. Gabriel dove for cover as a Bajoran woman, with fire in her eyes, unleashed a barrage of energy bolts. He recognized her from intelligence briefings. Kira Nerys, Wynn's most devoted lieutenant. The air crackled with superheated plasma as Gabriel's team fought their way forward. Bajoran zealots fell, but more seemed to appear from the shadows. "Enough!" a commanding voice rang out. The firing ceased. An older woman in ornate robes stood atop a raised dais. Kai Wynn. "One more step," she said, holding up a detonator, "and I unleash Ducat's gift upon us all." Gabriel met her gaze unflinching. "And become everything you claim to despise about your oppressors?" Wynn's finger hovered over the trigger. For a heartbeat, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Kira screamed, hurling herself at Gabriel with murderous intent. A blast from his lieutenant sent her flying, but not before her disruptor carved a burning path across his side. Chaos erupted. Gabriel's vision swam as his team subdued the remaining Bajorans. Through the haze of pain, he saw Wynn lowering the detonator, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Hours later, Gabriel watched from a stretcher as Wynn and her followers were led away in restraints. The ache in his side was nothing compared to the weight of what lay ahead. They'd won this battle, but Ducat was still out there. And now, a galaxy of new complications loomed. Dr. Shaw appeared at his side, concern etched on her face. "That was too close," she said softly. Gabriel started to reply, but alarms blared through the compound. An aide raced towards them, panic in his eyes. "Sir, the prisoner transport, it's under attack!" "Sir, the prisoner transport, it's under attack!" Gabriel's muscles screamed as he forced himself upright, ignoring the burning pain in his side. "Status report!" The aide's words tumbled out in a panicked rush. "Multiple ships, sir. They came out of nowhere. Ducat and Wynn, they're gone." Dr. Shaw's face paled. "How? The security protocols—" "Later," Gabriel cut her off, limping towards the command center. "We need to track them, now." Hours blurred into days as Gabriel coordinated a massive search effort. Cardassian and human ships scoured every parsec of nearby space, but Ducat and Wynn had vanished like smoke. It wasn't until a week later that the first pieces fell into place. Gabriel stood before a holo display, studying encrypted transmissions intercepted from the Cardassian fringe. "They're rebuilding," he muttered, eyes narrowing at the data. "Pirate fleets, smugglers, anyone with a grudge against the Alliance." Dr. Shaw nodded grimly. "And bioweapons, look at these supply manifests. They're consistent with metagenic tech components." Gabriel's fist clenched. "We need eyes on the inside. Isaac!" His aide appeared, datapad at the ready. "Assemble a team of our best covert operatives. I want them embedded in every black market hub from here to the Badlands." Weeks passed in a flurry of activity. Gabriel's network of spies fed back a steady stream of intel, painting a picture of Ducat's growing strength. They disrupted arms shipments where they could, but it felt like bailing out a sinking ship with a teacup. Then came the breakthrough they'd been waiting for. A frantic transmission from an agent on the edge of Bajoran space. "They have a lab. Gene therapy. But it's not what we thought. They're splicing. Oh God, it's a hybrid. Metagenic and some kind of Bajoran plague. They're going to hit human colonies. This could start a war." Gabriel's blood ran cold. He turned to Dr. Shaw, seeing his own horror reflected in her eyes. "We have to stop this," she whispered. Gabriel nodded, already tapping his communicator. "All ships, this is Commissioner Gabriel. We have actionable intelligence on Ducat's location. Prepare for immediate deployment." The battle unfolded in a maelstrom of phaser fire and exploding hull plating. Gabriel stood on the bridge of his flagship, barking orders as they tore through Sagan's escort ships. "Target those freighters," he shouted. "Do not let them reach warp speed." When the dust settled, the gene labs were secured, their deadly cargo contained before it could be weaponized. But the victory felt hollow. Ducat and Wynne had slipped away once more. Days later, Gabriel sat in his office, reviewing after-action reports. The door chimed. "Enter," he called. Dr. Shaw strode in, her face grim. "You need to see this." She activated a holoprojector. The image that flickered to life made Gabriel's stomach churn. Hundreds of Bajoran civilians, their bodies twisted and mutated beyond recognition. In the foreground stood Ducat and Wynne, their eyes burning with fanatic zeal. Wynne's voice rang out, filled with venom. "Behold the price of defiance. Release us, or watch this plague consume world after world." Gabriel's face hardened as he absorbed the weight of their threat. He turned to Dr. Shaw, perseverance etched in every line of his face. "Get me a secure channel to Ducat's last known location," he said. "It's time to end this." Gabriel's finger hovered over the comm button, his mind racing. Before he could make contact, the holoprojector flickered, its image dissolving into static. "What the—" he began, but his words were cut short by a deafening alarm. Red emergency lights bathed the command center as reports flooded in. Gabriel's blood ran cold as he processed the information. Sagan, still out there, still a threat. "Sir," an aide called out, her voice tight with panic. "We're detecting massive energy signatures. Some kind of bioweapon deployment." Gabriel's eyebrows furrowed. "Show me." A new hologram materialized, displaying a star chart overlaid with pulsing red indicators. Each one represented a potential target for Sagan's twisted creation, the Omega strain. Dr. Shaw's face was ashen as she studied the readouts. "This isn't just a virus anymore," she whispered. "It's evolved. If these readings are correct, entire ecosystems could be transformed in a matter of days." Gabriel's mind raced through possibilities, each more dire than the last. "Options?" he demanded. Shaw's fingers flew across her console. "I might have something," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "A nanotech countermeasure. It's theoretical, completely untested, but—" "Do it," Gabriel interrupted. He turned to his tactical officer. "Meanwhile, I want every available ship searching for Sagan's launch site. Use whatever means necessary." The next hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Gabriel coordinated the search efforts from the bridge of his flagship, pushing his crews to the brink of exhaustion. But Sagan proved maddeningly elusive, always one step ahead. On a desolate planetoid, Shaw and her team worked feverishly to bring their risky move to life. Gabriel watched via holofeed as they constructed a massive nanoforging reactor, its pulsing core a testament to the raw power they hoped to harness. A proximity alarm blared. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "Pirate raiders, closing fast." Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "Intercept course. We can't let them near that reactor." The ensuing battle was brutal and swift. Energy beams lanced through the void. Hull plating buckled and shattered. When the last raider fell, Gabriel allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. That moment shattered as Shaw's panicked voice cut through the comm static. "Gabriel, there's been an accident. The reactor..." The feed went dead. Heart pounding, Gabriel ordered an immediate evac to the planetoid's surface. What he found there defied comprehension. Where the reactor had stood, a swirling maelstrom of nanomaterial raged, and at its center, a form that was no longer entirely human. "Catherine?" Gabriel whispered, his voice breaking. The towering figure turned, its surface rippling with fractal patterns. When it spoke, the voice was Shaw's, yet not. "Gabriel," it intoned, each syllable resonating on multiple frequencies. "I am more now and less." Before Gabriel could respond, a priority alert cut through the air. They had found Sagan's base. Torn between duty and the incomprehensible tragedy before him, Gabriel made his choice. With one last, anguished look at the being that had been Catherine Shaw, he boarded his shuttle. As they rocketed towards Sagan's stronghold, Gabriel's comm crackled to life. Sagan's sneering face filled the screen, his finger poised over a detonator. "One more step, human," the Cardassian snarled, "and I unleash..." The transmission distorted, Sagan's image fragmenting into a kaleidoscope of light. In its place, a shimmering presence filled the view screen, Shaw's new form, reaching across vast distances. Gabriel watched in awe as Shaw's nanobiological influence swept through Sagan's systems, corrupting launch codes and enthralling his forces. By the time they reached the base, Sagan's rebellion had crumbled. As Gabriel led the final assault, securing the broken extremist and his doomsday weapons, a message reverberated through every comm channel in the sector. Shaw's transcendent consciousness called out to all sentient beings, offering a vision of unity and peace beyond mortal comprehension. Gabriel stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the stars. Tears glistened in his eyes as he contemplated the price of victory and the uncharted future that lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.